Hi, my name is Tanya and welcome to Utility Jane. I am making chocolate self-saucing pudding today. It has been a regular at our house for many years. The recipe has evolved from when I first started making it maybe 25 years ago, and now I use a lot of different ingredients to get the same pudding, well, virtually the same pudding at the end. This pudding is very forgiving in the recipe, and I don't often measure things exactly, but I work on a base of 2 cups of gluten-free self-raising flour, a cup of oat flour, 4 eggs, butter, cacao powder, milk. I sometimes use soy or almond, and coconut sugar. Today I am adding in a gluten-free sourdough starter. I find that cooking with gluten-free flour, quite an empty flour to cook with. There is sort of no body to it like a wheat flour. That is why I like to add oat flour, and it just gives it some body when you are baking with it and when you go to eat it. The sourdough starter also helps with that, which I find quite good at my age for digestion. Even if you don't have a sourdough starter, this recipe will work out without it. It just means that I have to add extra milk when I am mixing it to accommodate the sourdough starter. Making sure that the cake mix is not too runny so that when you move on to put hot water on top, it doesn't just blend through the cake mix. It will actually sit on top and then sink below. That is probably the most important part of the whole recipe, is making sure that the mix does not get too runny before you add the water. And in fact, this mix will make just a cake if you would prefer not to have the sauce. It is just a basic recipe that I use all the time, no matter whether making a cake or making pudding. It's just a standard basic measurements that I use. And as always, when I am making cakes, I mix the mix until I get that change in the color. When you start mixing, it is quite a dark brown, and by the time it is beaten, it goes that lighter brown, and you can tell it is fully mixed. For the sauce, I put some water on to boil. I have some cacao in a separate bowl. And for the sauce, I use brown sugar. You can use half and half, and it can work out, meaning coconut sugar and brown sugar. I find the best is the brown sugar for the sauce and the coconut sugar in the actual cake. You want to have a sugar that will make that rich sauce. And I haven't been able to find anything other than brown sugar that will do that. And I've tried using it multiple different ways, and this is the one that I keep coming back to, which is why it is such a good idea to have a cake that has a bit more body to the cake, and then if you have that sweeter sauce, it's not racing in your system. While I wait for my water to boil, I'm going to feed my sourdough starter. This is the full gluten-free sourdough starter. I feed it on oat flour. I've found it to work quite well. I always have 2 jars of sourdough starter. One is fed on oat flour and another on spelt and brown rice flour. And while it is lemon season, I was gifted a huge bag of lemons, so I'm making sure that I preserve them so that I will have them well into the next coming seasons. I love to freeze them into ice blocks, and that way I have fresh homegrown lemons all year through. It's great for having ice blocks in your water through summer. It's great if you just want to get one block out and defrost it for pancakes, banana pancakes. And it's also great to get out multiple blocks, and our favorite is lemon butter, or others know it as lemon curd. But I find preserving the lemons from this short amount of time in the season when they are available this way to work best for us. I do not empty the lemon ice blocks out of the trays. They are stored in them until we use them. I bought a whole heap so that that is possible. Now my water is boiling, I'm going to move back and get on and get this chocolate self-saucing pudding in the oven. I have this one tray that I always make it in, so I know the right amount of water to pour over the top. It's just how I work things. Rather than measuring things, I will put them into the same dish. I'm sure I'm not the only person that cooks like this. I spread out the mixture in the bottom of this ceramic baking tray. I sprinkle over all the cacao and brown sugar powder and evenly spread that out. I get a large spoon to slow down the pouring of the hot water, just so it sort of fans out and you don't end up with a hole in your cake mix. Gently and slowly pour it over, slowing that down until I have a sort of level that I work it to, and there is enough water that sits at the top. It is very full, but this always works for me. One thing we do love to have with it is a whipped coconut cream. It consists of 1 can of coconut cream, some vanilla, and some maple syrup. You can add a bit of coconut sugar to it, which thickens it even more. It gives it a different texture, and it gives it a creamier look to the mix, adding the coconut sugar. But either way, it's a delicious addition to the top of hot chocolate self-saucing pudding. It's always good to make the coconut cream ahead of time and get it into the fridge. And here it is. It is piping hot. Just going to get a piece out, and it looks absolutely delicious. It was absolutely delicious. And the mix of cream over that sweet, rich cake is the perfect match. It never lasts long, and it is quite fast to cook. It doesn't take a big lot of time in the oven. Now moving on to My dishwasher powder, I have done this before, but when I filmed this, I was out of powder, so I thought I may as well film it again. Just a basic recipe: citric acid, washing soda, and bicarb soda. A cup of each, thoroughly shaken together. I always use these plastic bottles because it makes it so easy to combine them in there. I have been using this for many years in my dishwasher, and I also add a lemon vinegar cleaner that I add to the dishwasher, which I will be making out of all those lemon peels that I have left over from juicing all those lemons.